Monster Hunter is one of the most interesting games to do speedruns in. For people who are unaware, you might be questioning what's so interesting about beating a Monster Hunter game as fast as possible. Well, those do exist, but beating the entire game isn't the most popular form of speedrunning in Monster Hunter. The most popular speedruns in Monster Hunter is beating a singular monster as fast as possible. Monhunt speedrunners don't hunt the monster, they slaughter them. But what if you're a more casual Monster Hunter player who wanted to get into speedrunning? I mostly play Monster Hunter casually and only have gotten into speedrunning on one occasion, that being the time where I did a list of super dumb Monster Hunter speedrun categories. To be fair though, I am the world record holder for the Vomitable Velocidrome in Freedom, which is super impressive by the way. Outside of that, I've never really gotten into Monhunt speedrunning despite me loving to watch them. So I decided that ends today. I want to get my hands dirty and obliterate a monster before they even have enough time to blink. Now, is this video meant to show off my dope-ass gaming skills, and if I actually try, I can actually be somewhat good at the game I've poured thousands of hours into? No, not really. I'm making this video to show what goes into Monster Hunter speedrunning, and trying to answer some questions like, is there skill involved, or do you just get so OP that you just unlock the monster? Or how much grinding is involved to make a min-max set? How about I start with the best question, where do you begin? Well, obviously, choose a game to start in. I chose Rise simply because the combat looks the coolest. Now that I picked out the game I want to speedrun in, the next step is to choose my target. At first I wanted to go for Hazard Primordial Malzeno, and I actually got pretty good at the fight, but living long enough without ever getting hit while having to deal 75,000 damage made it seem like I would have to dedicate an entire month to actually get a run with no carts. So instead I set my sights a little lower, and that poor bastard would be none other than Shigaru Magala. Specifically, the Event Quest one, which has 7,000 more HP. Before I get into the next step, I want to mention the TA Wiki, which is a rule set that makes speedrunning harder and more impressive. But I'm only going to be following 90% of their rules as I don't like 2 of them. That being no heroics, which if my health is going to be at 1, I'm definitely going to be using heroics. And the other one, which I don't even get, is no Kurios armor crafting. If someone can explain why this was implemented, I'd love to know. Other than those 2 rules, I'm following everything else. No buddies, no wildlife, no barrel bombs, and all that other lovely restrictive stuff. One last thing before we start, this was streamed live on my Twitch channel, so if you want to see more of my Monster Hunter content, you should go follow it. Now that we have our game and monster picked out, it is time for the most important step. And that is look up a build and steal it and say that you created it all by yourself, like I did with my cool and awesome bow build, that I definitely made all by myself and definitely didn't steal it from someone called Eddie Weekly who got a sub 3 on Hazard Premal. All jokes aside, I'll leave Eddie Weekly's Premal run in the description. It's a very impressive run and I recommend you check it out. Now that I have my awesome bow build all planned out, it is time to grind for it. Depending on how much your character has done, it will definitely play in a factor of how long it will take to make a min-max build. Someone who already is at anomaly level 250 would not have to pour as many hours as I did. I did this on my PC Rise account because my Switch one is pretty set, so I wanted my PC account to be stacked as well. My PC account, however, was not very far into anomaly grinding. At the beginning of my speedrun journey, my PC account sat at 116 hours, and only at anomaly level 91. For those who don't know, to get the materials to unlock the last few slots on your weapon when augmenting, you have to be at anomaly level 241. That means I have to grind 150 anomaly levels. But before I could get into that, I have to get the gear I'll be using, which required me to kill a few Valstraxes to craft my bow. And I had to kill 5 Chaotic Gore Magalas to make its armor besides its legs, where I luckily already had enough materials to make Gasmagorm legs. Now with my armor and bow crafted, it is time to farm anomalies to augment my gear. From anomaly level 100 to 200, each quest gave me around 2 to 3 anomaly levels, and I only had to fight things like Rajang and Gore Magala, but then I reached the final stretch. From anomaly level 200 to 241, you get half in an anomaly level, and have to fight Risen Shigaru and Risen Crimson Glow Valstrax, which are not the easiest monsters to grind. But after a billion Risen Valstrax kills, I was finally able to fully augment my bow. Now that my bow is fully upgraded, it is time to play the slots, but better known as Kurios armor crafting, which is a system in Sunbreak where you can trade armor skills that are on your armor for new ones. Since I've just done 100 plus anomaly quests, I had a shit ton of Amber Essence, which meant I got to spin the slots to my heart's content. After gambling for almost 2 hours, I finally got the skills I needed on my armor. Now that my gear is fully augmented, it is time to grind for decos. which required me to hunt a wide range of monsters, but it didn't take long since I already had most of the materials. And most materials you need for decos come from high rank monsters. While I have been doing all of this grinding, I've been doing another grind, and that is talisman grinding, which is pretty much pure RNG. You can guarantee one skill through Cyclius Kuros melding, but that requires you to sacrifice your Vigor Curious talismans. The talisman I needed was one with the skills Dragonheart and Heroics. I was able to guarantee Dragonheart through Cyclius, but trying to get one skill out of 147 was very unlikely. Luckily, right as I finished grinding for decos, I was able to get a talisman with Dragonheart level 2 and Heroics level 2 with a few deco slots on it. I kinda wish I got level 3 on Dragonheart, but beggars can't be choosers. Grinding for all of that took 75 hours. Now if your character is already at anomaly level 241, you're mostly looking at 20 to 15 hours of grinding. Maybe not even if you get super lucky, but getting a build this good definitely takes quite a bit. One major thing to note is this build is only good for monsters that are weak against Dragon, which include 13 monsters. So if you wanted to fight one of the 68 monsters that aren't weak against Dragon, or want to speedrun with a different weapon, you are looking at more grinding to do. Sure, you might not have to grind for decos as you probably have a good amount, and your previous talismans could be useful, but you're still looking at a few more hours of grinding to do if you want to hunt a monster with a different weakness, or use a different weapon. All of that aside, my final build ended up being a little less stronger than the one I copied, but these are all the skills. Now it's finally time to practice. I didn't want to play with the OP build just yet, as one hit equals death. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, mostly any Monster Hunter speedrun you see is also a no-hit run. Cause if you're running Heroics, one hit will cart you. And even if you don't get one-shotted, it is still a time waste. So to get the dodge timing down, I started to practice with a build that had a shit ton of defense, just so I could learn everything about Shigaru, without having to watch my character being dragged by cats to the camp every 10 seconds. While I was practicing, I noticed a few very important things. The first being, holy shit, the bow is so hard to speedrun with. At first I thought the bow would be a really good weapon for me, because it's my second favorite weapon, but also because its dodge is its counter. All I want to tell past me is how big of a dumbass he is now, because the dodge being the counter is a huge problem. While it's very fun and satisfying while playing the game casually, but for speedrunning, that means you have to time every counter with each hit, whereas other weapons, their counter lasts for a decent amount of time, making it so you don't have to perfectly time your counters. If I probably speedran with a different weapon, I'd probably have a different outlook on speedrunning, but my god was it frustrating to use the bow with the actual build. Anyways, some important notes that I picked up on while practice hunting Shigaru was after he does his initial roar, he'll usually do 1 or 2 moves before roaring on his hind legs. Sometimes he'll do 3 moves, but that only happened a few times. But this was a huge opening to do massive damage if I dodged both roars. Another thing I noticed was when Shigaru did his slam move while not in frenzy state, I needed to dodge backwards, allowing me to get a few shots in directly to his face. But if he was in frenzy state, I needed to dodge forward, as it meant death because after the slam he spawns a row of AoEs. A very good thing to know is that breaking his wings will make him topple, which leads me to do massive damage on his head. The last very important thing to be noted is the worst possible thing Shigaru can do is hit me. You're probably thinking, no shit, if you get hit, you will die. Well, if my health is still around 45% and Shigaru hits me with his wing, I can live it with a few HP to spare. And if I'm being honest, I wish this move killed me, because when this happens, I can't activate Strife, which is a skill that activates when your health reaches a certain percentage to your red gauge, and makes it so you have infinite stamina. But when Shigaru hits me and I live, I automatically abandon, as having Strife active is crucial. Now it is finally time to start doing actual attempts. There were some runs where I was an absolute meth head going crazy with the dodge timing, and then sometimes this would happen. After many tries, I got one run with a time of 4 minutes and 19 seconds, but I had 2 carts, which was a very bad thing. But on the positive side, this meant sub 4 is very possible. And then a few runs later, I got a run with a time of 3 minutes and 40 seconds. But the problem was I carted once, which wasn't an improvement, but still not what I'm looking for. After that run, I kinda went on a dry streak until I found the secret sauce hidden in the Holy Lands known as the options menu, where I pushed my camera as far back as I could, because the more of the monster I could see, the more I could react to. I kid you not, this run was just 8 attempts after I put this setting on. I'm not going to say a single word, I'll let the gameplay speak for itself. Yes, yes, holy fuck. $338. Holy shit, that was sick. Holy shit. Quest complete. That was the speedrun I grinded so much to achieve, and honestly, it was kinda worth it. Could it have been better? Definitely. A huge problem I had was not being on his head 24/7, but all I could think of in that moment was to just damage it. But I'm pretty happy with the time, and especially having no carts. Now, I would not even wish for my worst enemy to speedrun with the bow, because that definitely took a lot out of me. But I did look very cool and stylish, so the pain was semi-worth it. Would I recommend getting into Monster Hunter speedrunning to a casual hunter? Yes, but only if you're very dedicated. I definitely say try it, as it's very satisfying when you get that one run, but maybe do it with a weapon that has an easier counter, like the longsword. One thing I did learn through all this was that Monster Hunter speedrunning is pretty hard and takes a good amount of skill. It takes a lot of grinding and studying a monster's every move and interaction to even get one good run. I have more respect for a lot of speedrunners now, especially bow speedrunners, cause my god you guys are soldiers. Anyways, that's about it. Thanks for watching everyone.